Have you ever felt like your mind is screaming in silence, while the world expects you to smile and keep going? That's not weakness, that's pressure. And today, we're not just going to talk about surviving it. We're going to learn how to rise above it with wisdom, power, and clarity from the highest source, God. Ladies and gentlemen, life doesn't always give us warning signs before it weighs us down. One moment, we're managing responsibilities, relationships, in being chosen, and expectations, and the next, we feel like we're drowning inside our own thoughts. Mental pressure doesn't come with alarms. It creeps in quietly. And before we know it, we start questioning our worth, our choices, and even our future. But here's the true thing: pressure is not here to break you. It's here to build you. Pressure reveals the strength that's already inside you, just waiting to be awakened. Today, I want to share 5 powerful signs that help us recognize and handle mental pressure before it breaks us. These signs are not just solutions. They are divine lessons inspired by the wisdom of God, the architect of the soul. And after that, I will leave you with 7 key principles that will not just motivate you, but truly transform the way you handle your inner battles. So take a deep breath. This is not just a speech, this is a turning point. Let's begin. Have you ever walked into a room, people smiled on the outside, but felt completely empty inside? That moment of silence within you, that deep pause you can't explain, isn't a weakness. It's not laziness. It's not being unmotivated or ungrateful. That silence is a signal. A divine alarm bell ringing softly, telling you that your soul is tired. Not your body, not your job, your soul. We live in a world that claps for noise, speed, and endless hustle. But silence, that's misunderstood. It's labeled as loneliness or defeat. But in reality, silence is a sacred space where transformation begins. When the pressure in your mind builds, when your thoughts begin to race like a storm with no direction, and when the weight of expectations begins to suffocate you, your silence is trying to say something. It's your inner system calling for attention. And if we don't listen to it early, that silence becomes louder in the worst ways: anxiety, burnout, sleeplessness, and emotional breakdowns. Yet we ignore it, numb it, distract it, because we've been taught that pausing is failing, that if you stop, someone else will get ahead. But here's the truth: what's the use of getting ahead in life if your peace is lost along the way? Think of a pressure cooker. It whistles not because it's broken, but because the heat inside has reached a point where release is necessary. Now, imagine ignoring that whistle. The pressure would explode. That's exactly what happens with the human mind. Your silence is that whistle. It's the indicator that your emotional temperature has risen and you need to release before you reach a breaking point. But most of us silence the silence with noise, scrolling endlessly on phones, binge watching meaningless content, drowning in work, surrounding ourselves with people just so we don't feel alone. But none of that helps if we don't go inward. Let me share something from daily life. Imagine a young woman named Zoya. She's doing everything right. A stable job, helping her family, maintaining friendships, and even waking up at 6 a.m. to fit a morning workout. From the outside, she looks like the model of strength, but inside, she's slowly crumbling. She can't sleep properly. Her smile feels like a mask. Every small inconvenience feels like a massive burden. One day, while washing dishes at night, she breaks down in tears. No reason, no event, just a wave of unexplainable sadness. That was her silence, screaming. Instead of rushing to fix it, Zoya did something different this time. She stopped. She didn't force herself to be okay. She let herself feel. She sat down in her room, away from everyone. No phone, no distractions, just her and her thoughts. That moment of silence, that choice to pause, was the beginning of her healing. She realized she was living for everyone else, but not feeding her own soul. She started journaling every morning, even if it was just one sentence. She took short walks without music or podcasts, just listening to the sound of birds and her own breath. Slowly, her silence turned into clarity. She didn't have all the answers, but she finally heard herself again. And that's the magic of honoring your silence. You get to hear yourself again. You get to ask questions like, what do I need right now? Why am I feeling this way? What is life trying to teach me? These questions don't have immediate answers, but the very act of asking them creates space. And that space is what removes pressure. Because pressure often comes from clutter. Mental clutter, emotional clutter, spiritual clutter. Silence is the broom that clears the floor of your mind so you can see again. Some of the strongest people in the world are not the loudest. They are the ones who honor their inner silence. The ones who take time to be alone. Not because they're antisocial, but because they know their soul needs refueling. A wise person once said, silence is not empty, it's full of answers. And when you treat silence like a friend, not a punishment, you begin to realize that your strength is not in constantly doing, but in consciously being. So, the next time your mind feels heavy, when your smile feels forced, when you're tired but know why, pause. Sit in silence, don't escape it. Embrace it. Listen to what your soul is trying to say. You'll be amazed at how much peace returns when you simply honor the whisper of your inner world. In a life full of noise, silence becomes your superpower, and recognizing that silence as a signal, not a surrender, might just be the very act that saves your mind from breaking. Not every battle needs your sword. That statement alone can shift the way we carry our burdens, our emotions, and even our relationships. In a world that constantly tells us to fight, hustle, argue, and prove ourselves, there is something powerful, almost sacred, about choosing peace over pressure. But here's the challenge, Egg. We've been conditioned to believe that being strong means we must always engage, always fix, always carry everything and everyone. And that's exactly where mental pressure multiplies. Because when you try to fight every battle that comes your way, you forget not all battles are yours to fight. Some are distractions, some are tests, and some are invitations to walk away and protect your peace. Think about this. Imagine a person standing in a thunderstorm, trying to control the rain with their hands. No matter how hard they try, they will get soaked. That's what we do when we try to control everything around us. Whether it's trying to change people who don't want to change, fixing problems that aren't ours, or forcing outcomes we can't control, we're emotionally draining ourselves. The mental pressure doesn't come from the situation itself, it comes from the illusion that we must handle it all. But the truth is, power lies not in reacting to every storm, but in knowing which ones are worth facing. Let me give you a real-world example. A young man named Faizan works in a corporate office. He's responsible, hardworking, and deeply committed to his team. But there's a colleague who constantly blames him, miscommunicates, and creates unnecessary drama. At first, Faizan tries to explain, defend, and correct things. He spends hours after work writing long emails to clear misunderstandings, losing sleep trying to fix what isn't broken. Weeks pass, and instead of the situation improving, Faizan feels mentally exhausted. One day he sits in his car after work, staring at the steering wheel, wondering why he feels like he's been fighting a war every day. And then it hits him. He's been bringing a sword to a battle that was never his. He realizes that the problem wasn't just the colleague. It was his own belief that he had to fight every time he was misunderstood. That day, he makes a choice. He stops reacting. He sets clear boundaries. He starts focusing on his work and his growth instead of the office drama. At first, it's uncomfortable. But within weeks, his energy returns. His focus sharpens. His peace comes back. And what's even more surprising, the drama begins to fade. Why? Because when you stop feeding battles with your attention, they often dissolve on their own. This is the lesson. Not every conflict needs a response. Not every argument deserves your voice. You don't need to prove your worth in every room or explain your heart to people who have already decided not to understand you. When we choose to pick every battle, we carry weights that don't belong to us. And that weight becomes pressure, and that pressure becomes burnout. But when you learn to pause and ask, is this really my battle? You create space. Space for your mind to breathe. Space for your soul to rest. Space for your energy to be used where it actually matters. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. There's a difference between courage and compulsion. Courage is fighting the battles that shape your character. Compulsion is fighting every challenge just because it showed up. Wisdom is knowing the difference. And this wisdom often comes from the divine. God doesn't ask you to fight everything. In fact, many times you're guided to surrender, not to give up, but to rise higher. Like the eagle that doesn't fight the storm, it flies above it. The eagle uses the storm's pressure to elevate itself. That's how we must be. Learn to rise above, not always dive into the noise. Every time you choose not to fight a useless battle, you are preserving your inner peace. And in this world, peace is a rare currency. When you have it, protect it like gold. You don't owe anyone an emotional reaction. You don't have to be right all the time. Sometimes walking away is not losing. It's healing. It's choosing your mental health over unnecessary mental warfare. So the next time you feel the urge to argue, to defend, to jump into a draining situation, pause. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, lay down the sword. Let your silence speak. Let your growth speak. Let your energy go where it truly matters. That is not weakness. That is power. That is grace. That is divine discipline. Because at the end of the day, a peaceful mind is more powerful than 1,000 noisy victories. And if you can learn to protect your peace by walking away from the wrong battles, you've already won the war that truly matters. The one within. You are not your thoughts. Let that sink in for a moment. The voices in your head, the ones that say, you're not good enough, you'll fail, you're falling behind, those thoughts are not the ultimate truth. They're just passing clouds. But too often, we mistake them for the sky. We believe every voice, every doubt, every worry, as it were a divine judgment. In reality, it's just noise. Sometimes shaped by fear, sometimes by comparison, and sometimes by deep pain that was never healed. But your soul, your true self, is far more powerful, far more peaceful than the chaos of your mind. In moments of pressure, the mind becomes a battlefield. 100 thoughts swirl at once. You start questioning yourself. Why can't I be stronger? Why do I feel so lost? What if I fail again? And slowly, without even noticing, you begin to identify with these thoughts. They become your label, your mirror, your prison. But here's the truth that frees your thoughts are just experiences of the mind. They are not the essence of who you are. The mind is a tool. It's not your master. It's meant to serve you, not control you. Let's take a common example. Think of Ali, a university student. He's bright, talented, and kind-hearted, but he constantly battles with overthinking. Before every exam, his mind floods with thoughts. I'll forget everything. I'm not smart enough. Others are better than me. Even after studying for hours, he feels like he knows nothing. His hands sweat, his confidence drops, and sometimes he even fakes sickness just to avoid the test. But one day, after watching a talk on self-awareness, he hears a line that shakes his heart. You are not your thoughts. That night, he sits quietly, just observing his mind. For the first time, he notices that his thoughts keep shifting. One moment they say he'll fail, and the next they say he might succeed. That contradiction makes him realizing if thoughts can change so fast, how can they define him? From that day on, Ali begins to train his awareness. Whenever a negative thought arises, he mentally says, "This is just a thought. It's not a fact." He doesn't try to suppress it or force positivity. He simply detaches from it. And slowly, he notices a change. The pressure inside him starts to lift, not because the exams disappeared, but because he stopped letting his mind bully him. This is the shift we all need. Stop holding on to every thought like it's a life sentence. Imagine if every person walking past you on the street shouted something. Would you believe them all? Of course not. So why do we believe every thought that crosses our mind? The mind is influenced by so many things: past wounds, social pressure, fatigue, and even food. That's why it's unstable. But your soul, it's constant, it's rooted, it doesn't shout, it whispers. And when you're silent enough to hear it, that's when your strength awakens. Lalutos. One of the most powerful practices to understand this is mindful observation. You don't have to be a monk or a spiritual teacher to do it. Just take 5 minutes every day. Sit with your eyes closed. Watch your thoughts like a traffic controller watching cars. Don't chase any thought. Don't judge them. Just notice. You'll be surprised to see how quickly they come and go. And in that noticing, you'll discover something magical. The one who is watching the thoughts, that still presence, is you, the real you, the peaceful you, the grounded, eternal you that no pressure can shake. Let's be clear. This doesn't mean you'll never have negative thoughts again. You will. We all do. But the power lies in not fusing with them. A cloud may cover the sun, but it doesn't destroy it. Likewise, a negative thought may enter your mind, but it can never define your worth unless you allow it to. The more you anchor yourself in this truth, the lighter your life feels. You no longer get tossed around by every emotional wave. You become the ocean beneath the wave. Calm, deep, deep, and steady. And when you start living from this place of inner awareness, pressure transforms. It no longer feels like a monster that's chasing you. It becomes a signal, a reminder to return to your center. You realize that the world may bring storms, but your peace is not outside. It's within. Your worth is not decided by grades, salary, opinions, or appearance. It is already built into your being. So the next time you feel mentally crushed, emotionally lost, or spiritually tired, pause. Listen to the voice inside you that's quieter than the chaos. The one that says, "You've been through worse. You are not alone. This too shall pass." That voice, that's not your thought. That's your soul. That is God speaking through your heart. Not to shame you, but to remind you you are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them, survives them, and rises above them. Rest is not laziness, it's recharging. In a world that glorifies hustle, rewards exhaustion, and celebrates people who never seem to stop, rest has been misjudged. It's been labeled as weakness, as a lack of ambition, or as a pause in productivity. But true rest is not the opposite of hard work. It is what makes hard work sustainable. Just like a phone cannot function without charging, the human soul cannot thrive without intentional stillness. Rest is not a break from growth, it is a sacred part of it. Imagine a beautiful tree in the middle of a forest. All year long, it offers shade, bears fruit, holds nests for birds, and sways gracefully in the wind. But during the winter, it sheds its leaves. It becomes still. It appears lifeless to the outside world. Yet, beneath the surface, something incredible is happening. The roots are growing deeper. The tree is conserving energy to blossom again when the time is right. This is the cycle of nature. This is the wisdom of divine timing. And just like that tree, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to pause, not because you've stopped growing, but because your inner strength is preparing for something greater. Think about your own life. How often do you feel tired and overwhelmed, not just physically, but mentally? How many times have you pushed yourself through a headache, ignored emotional fatigue, skipped meals, and told yourself, I don't have time to rest? We wear business like a badge of honor. We say, I've only slept 4 hours, as if that's something to be proud of. But the truth is, burnout is not a trophy. It is a warning, a signal from your body and your mind that something is off balance. And when you ignore that signal, pressure doesn't just build, it explodes. Let's take an example from daily life. Ahmed is a young entrepreneur. He works late nights, attends every meeting, answers emails at midnight, and drinks coffee to stay awake. People admire his discipline, his hustle, his so-called grind. But inside, Ahmed is crumbling. He wakes up with chest tightness, loses interest in the things he once loved, and feels a deep sadness he can't explain. One morning, he collapses in the office and is rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis: severe stress and exhaustion. In that hospital bed, Ahmed realizes something profound. All his success means nothing if his health is gone. That moment becomes his turning point. After recovering, Ahmed makes a radical decision. He schedules rest into his calendar. Just like meetings, he starts going for evening walks without his phone, learns the art of deep breathing, and even takes short power naps during the day. People initially call him lazy or less ambitious, but he doesn't listen, because for the first time in years, he feels alive. His creativity improves, his energy returns, his clarity deepens, and his business, instead of falling, begins to grow. Because now he's not running on fumes, but on fire from within. This is the truth we often forgetting. Rest doesn't slow you down. It realigns you. It connects you to your essence. When you rest, your body heals, your mind recalibrates, and your spirit breathes. And from that space of renewal, your actions become more powerful. You work smarter, not harder. You love deeper, not out of obligation, but from fullness. You serve others not because you're drained, but because your cup is overflowing. Rest comes in many forms. It's not just sleep. It's sitting in silence without guilt. It's saying no to a social event because your soul needs solitude. It's listening to music that soothes your heart. It's walking barefoot on grass. It's journaling your feelings instead of bottling them up. It's watching the sunset without capturing it for social media. Rest is not an escape from life. It is returning home to yourself. But why is rest so difficult for so many of us? The answer lies in our conditioning. We've been told since childhood that achievement equals worth. That if we're not doing something visible, we're wasting time. That success requires suffering. But true success is not just about what you build. It's about how you feel while building it. If your dreams come true but you are broken inside, was it worth it? The wisdom of God, nature, and ancient truth all point to the same direction. Everything in life moves through rhythm, not rush. The moon doesn't rise all day. The ocean has tides. Even the heart beats in pulses, expansion and contraction. So why do we believe we must always be on, always be available, always be producing? Rest is not absence, it is presence. Presence with your breath, your thoughts, your emotions. It is a pause that creates space for wisdom to enter. So the next time you feel the weight of the world, don't reach for another task to numb the discomfort. Reach for stillness. Let your rest be a rebellion against a culture that equates worth with exhaustion. Say to yourself, with courage and conviction, I deserve to rest. Not because I'm broken, but because I'm worthy of wholeness. That small shift in belief can dissolve years of pressure. Because when you honor your need to rest, you begin to live, not just survive. And that is where true power begins. What you feed grows. This is not just a phrase, it's a principle that quietly governs every corner of your life. Just like a garden blooms only when the right seeds are nurtured, your mind, your emotions, and your inner peace all flourish or fade based on what you allow to enter. If you constantly feed your thoughts with fear, negativity, and comparison, that's what will multiply within you. But if you nourish your mind with gratitude, wisdom, purpose, and faith, then strength and serenity become your reality. The choice is yours every single day. Imagine this. You wake up and the first thing you do is scroll through social media. You see filtered perfection, curated lifestyles, people showing their highlight reels while you're still in your pajamas dealing with your reality. In that one moment, seeds of insecurity and inadequacy are quietly planted. Then you turn on the news and it's chaos, conflict, tragedy, pressure, noise, more seeds. You go out, someone criticizes you, or you overhear gossip, and more negativity is added to the soil of your mind. By evening, you're drained. Not because something drastic happened, but because all day you've been unconsciously watering the wrong thoughts. Let's bring in a real life story. A young woman named Heba was once full of joy and optimism. She loved writing, enjoyed nature, and smiled easily. But over time, life got busy. Her phone became her best friend. Every spare second was filled with scrolling, watching, consuming content after content, most of it filled with complaints, drama, and shallow comparisons. Without realizing it, Heba stopped writing. She stopped noticing sunsets. She stopped feeling inspired. Her inner light dimmed, and anxiety started taking over. She thought she was changing. But in truth, it wasn't a change. It was just poor mental nutrition. She had been feeding the weeds and starving the flowers. One day, her younger sister asked her, "Why don't you laugh the way you used to?" That question hit hard. That night, Heba reflected deeply. She realized her habits had shifted her mindset. She made a decision not to disconnect from the world, but to consciously reconnect with what fed her soul. She started small. She replaced negative content with motivational talks. She read books instead of comments. She began journaling again. She started each day with a gratitude list instead of a feed full of filtered illusions. And slowly, like the first blossom after winter, her peace returned. Her joy came back. Her creativity revived. What changed? Not her life, but what she was feeding. This is a truth we all need to embrace. Your mind is a garden. It will grow what you plant. If you're constantly surrounded by complaints, criticism, and chaos, then don't be surprised when your thoughts start feeling heavy and hopeless. But if you surround yourself with truth, with beauty, with inspiring words, with moments of stillness, you'll start to feel different from the inside out. It's not magic, it's maintenance. This also applies to the people you allow into your space. Every person carries an energy. Some uplift, while others drain. Some speak life into your dreams, while others poison your confidence. Every conversation is an exchange of energy. Be mindful of who you allow to speak into your mind. You don't need to cut people off, but you can choose how much access they have to your sacred space. And more importantly, you can choose what you take in and what you leave behind. Even your inner voice is shaped by what you feed it. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not enough, I always mess up, nothing ever works out for me," then those thoughts become beliefs, and beliefs become your life's direction. But imagine if you gently replaced those thoughts with, "I'm learning, I'm growing, I've survived so much, I can handle this too." That shift doesn't just change your day, it changes your destiny. Now, let's talk about spiritual nutrition. Feeding your soul is as important as feeding your mind. Taking time to connect with God, to reflect on deeper meanings of life, to be still and listen rather than always speak. These are not luxuries, they're necessities. When your spiritual well is full, you don't get shaken by small storms. You walk through life with a quiet confidence, knowing you're rooted in something eternal. One powerful practice is to start and end your day with intentional thoughts. In the morning, ask yourself, "What do I want to feed my mind with today?" At night, ask, "What did I consume today, and how did it make me feel?" These two questions can slowly guide you toward habits that uplift instead of deplete. And remember, just as junk food affects your physical health over time, junk thoughts affect your mental health in the same way. One day of negativity